The people that couldn't make it to class today, out sick or for whatever reason, we're going to record what we're working on, which is formatting a full engineering report in Microsoft Word primarily. We do use the other applications. I'm using a Apple computer. It's running a different version of Word, but it's primarily going to be the same. So you guys have stuff on top. Mine's going to be on the side. So you probably start by setting up some document margins. And mine is set up to be a less of a margin than default. That way I have more space per page to work with. Printers can generally handle a ½ inch margin all the way around. To be safe, I do 0.7. So I'm going to use the grading sheet that you guys got as my guide for the content that I need. First of all, we'll start out with a cover page, and on that we'd better have, let's bump up the font. Cover page. On that we'd better say what class we're in, what lab we're doing, some of our group members, the date we did it, and the date it's submitted. Next, let's do an executive summary, and since you get a point off for spelling errors, I like to fix them right away. If we move down, we're going to have a table of contents, a list of figures, and a list of tables. Optionally, you can add a list of equations. That's not really necessary for us. We should only have a few equations, so it shouldn't be bad. Now you're going to introduce the lab. What are you doing in the lab? Do you develop the theory? Do experimental apparatus and procedure? Then we're going to do experimental results. We're going to do statistical considerations, which you can include in the other sections or have it as a separate section if you like. That's in the email we sent out about how accurate can you be with a thermocouple. Don't give me to the 6th digit on a standard thermocouple. You can't be that accurate. And talk about that. How does that change the data, if it does at all? We should have some conclusions about our results, recommendations or comments about the lab. References are very important for an engineering document, and then in the appendix we're going to throw our references, reference material, and your sample calculations. So that's all the parts of the lab. Let's start formatting. I'm going to start with doing some page breaks to get this stuff where it needs to go. So, cover page on its own page, executive summary, that should be on its own page as well. So let's go right after here at the table of contents, which will be the next page, and that'll break. Table of contents, list of figures, list of tables. They'll be in the same group, so we'll leave those alone, and then the introduction for the lab will start the main body of your report. So we'll break that again. If I zoom out, we have components of the lab. We'll do a couple more breaks. Let's break conclusions off so that I can flip to a single page and look at your conclusions. References and recommendations, they could be with conclusions if it's short enough, and then appendix will be another break as well, and that's just page break. Let's jump back in and do our page numbers now, since we have our sections broke up. Cover page doesn't have page numbers, and I like my page numbers in the footer, and for alignment I'm going to throw a right alignment and then we're going to come down and insert a page number. I get page number 2, which is wrong. The cover page is not the first page. The executive summary is the first page. So I'm going to remove this link to previous, go in and format the page to start at 1, and since this is the preliminary part of the document, we're going to use the lowercase alphabet versus numerical format. So we have that, and now the list of figures also falls into that category. So we want it to link to previous, but we need to change the format. And do our eyes again, and there we go. So no page number, I. And then, of course, this needs to start at the numerical value 1, not linked to previous numbers. So we remove a link to previous, go into a formatting, and let's start it at 1. Excellent. Recommendations, references, starting at 2 and linked, and then, let's see, you guys can't see it, but this last page is appendix, listed as 3. The appendix, we're going to use a different format, so we don't link to the last one, format as uppercase letters, and we'll start at the first one. So that's page numbers. If we want to go in and take a look at the individual content now, we'll start using these styles over here, and also bullets and numbering. Let's start with bullets and numbering, where we go in and experimental apparatus and procedure is the big one. My apparatus is going to be using bullets, because sometimes I have multiple apparatus. Say I need 2 thermocouples, and they're type T. And then I need 4 containers, so on. So now that I'm using bullets for apparatus, I don't get confused with the first thing I need is 3 things, or is that 13 and it's out of order. We should be able to handle that, but it's just a formatting thing that's nice.
When you start doing that, do you want to like just read paragraph saying, you know, setting up all this the following equipment that we need, or we can just go straight into bullets saying?
For this type of document, you should lead in with an introductory sentence for all of your main headings. You know, introduction to lab, obviously, you're just going to jump into an introduction. But when you start listing things, you should talk about what you're listing. So, good question. The procedure goes in chronological order, so it makes sense that we use numbers, and we use the third person past tense. So, in the lab, this was conducted first. So on. So, for apparatus and procedure, using bullets and numbers for that. Now, we can do some fancier stuff with bullets and numbering in the references section. You can set it up so that your references being in alphabetical order following ASME guidelines. A nifty trick is to format your bullets and numbering to use ASME format. So now it's automated. The thing with this, if you're going to start using in-text referencing, is to do your references last, because if you start reorganizing, the numbers will not reorient themselves. So you'll have to go through the document again. References should be the last thing you do. Making notes within the text, and then at the end of doing the document, filling in the appropriate references.